You see this beautiful cover here, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, hot mess? Well, I had redesigned it. I've been doing this a lot lately with all the covers. Here's all the ones you've already seen in my previous video, but now I've made a whole lot more. In fact, I've remade all the covers. Every single cover from book 1 all the way to book 21. I've almost went crazy with the amount of covers I've made lately. But luckily I didn't. I want to show off and explain all my design choices for each one, even the ones you've already seen in the previous video. But don't worry, I'll just be brief on the 6 I've already discussed. Let's get started by going in order of each cover. So let's start with book 1. This is a classic cover that is basically one of the most well-known kids' books ever. The cover is an icon, and there is no flaws. Being a flawless cover is good for the book, but not for me. How was I supposed to improve on peak? Well, what I did was basically just screw the rules laid out by the Wimpy Kid cover designing standard and make it to where Greg is stepping on top of the drawing while he's looking at the cheese on the ground at school. His shadow is overlapping the drawing as well as his foot. I did this because this is a first book. I can't make the texture too detailed, otherwise it wouldn't look like a first and instead just look like any sequel book. So I changed the drawing without actually changing the drawing. If I did a different and more detailed drawing, it would not look like a book, one of a book series. Hope you like it. Book 2's cover is practically flawless as well. It was pretty easy, however, to think of a good texture. The floor of the living room after Roderick's big party. Mess everywhere. Stuff all over the floor. It was a great idea, I believe, and I was still able to keep it blue, which is a little challenge I try to do. Keep all the remake covers mainly the same color as its original. That's not a must, however. Hope you like book 2. Book 3. This is the first book I ever read from Wimpy Kid besides the do-it-yourself book that I got from a Movie 1 DVD and book combo package I got for my birthday. I like the iconic cover. It's nice. What I decided to do when remaking it was make a texture of a Boy Scout uniform that Greg would wear if he went with his dad to the camping trip. But he got sick, so his dad only went. I spent a lot of time on this cover to really master what a Boy Scout would wear. With the title art, I did a stick with 3 burnt marshmallows with the title written on them. What do you think of book 3? I remember having a super tough time trying to find book 4 when I was reading all the Wimpy Kid books for the first time. It wasn't ever available at the library or at the store on the shelves. Wimpy Kid was very popular, so most of the books were sold out. I did eventually get my hands on it, and I loved it. The cover isn't bad either. I love the yellow color and the picture. All the classic covers are simple, and that's what's great about them. They don't need to be over the top, like future books are. With my redesign, I focused more on the dog part of the book than the summer part. The texture was dog biscuits, and even the spine. The drawing is Greg picking up the dog poo that his new dog drops. What do you think of book 4? Cover 5 was definitely a cover I was struggling with so much. Why? Because the book is about puberty, and having the cover be pimply and hairy skin does not make for an eye-pleasing cover. So what did I do instead? Well, at first I thought that the texture should be a purple puzzle, because puberty is kind of a puzzle you got to solve. I thought that idea was good enough, as I could not think of anything else. I changed up the idea a little to have the cover be a purple table with the puzzle pizzas on it, as it looked better. With the title art, I had Rowley's egg being cracked in half, with the title being written in orange yolk. The spine is a bunch of mirrors, because when you go through puberty, you just become insecure and sensitive about your appearance. This can also cause you to feel uglier than you actually are. We sometimes look back at old pictures of ourselves and realize it wasn't as bad as we thought. That's what the drawing represents. I think this is an out there cover, but I like it. What do you think of the cover? Cabin Fever is a cover that I really like except for the drawing. I tried my hardest to do a drawing where Greg is stuck inside because snow is blocking the door, but I couldn't make it work. So I just did Greg stuck in snow with a bunch of references to the book. Greg is also a bit too big in this cover, but at the time of making the cover, I was kind of lazy with the drawing. I'm glad I was able to make it look Christmas themed without going overboard. What do you think of the cover? The third wheel is a cover that I copied from my first remake of the cover. Back then, I was just making classic covers into the texture covers, but now I'm just doing remakes. The original cover had rose petals on the chocolate, but this one is slightly different, including the spine. The picture is definitely a strange one with Greg trying to prevent Rowley and the girl they go to the prom with from kissing. Greg is the third wheel. What do you think of this cover? This is a cover you guys got to help with by voting for what drawing idea was used, but because I kind of like two ideas equally, I just made two versions for both people. I love all the references to luck. The four-leaf clovers, the ladybugs, a rainbow with the pot of gold. I like this cover a lot. What do you think of the cover? The Long Haul is a cover that is basically just a copy and paste of my previous remake I did before I made this YouTube channel. Why? Because the idea of the texture being a road is just too obvious, and it just makes too much sense. If I did anything else, it would feel like I had to make it different for the sake of it being different. I did change it a little, however, by adding the clothes all over the road, which is a scene that happens in the book. What do you think of the cover? Diary of a Wimpy Kid Old School is a really cool looking remake cover in my opinion. Mostly because of the fun drawing I got to do. We did another vote, and you all voted for the bike idea. And so here we are. The cover just feels like the old days, and I love it. Not too much to say about this cover. What do you think? At first I wasn't excited to make this cover, because Double Down isn't my favorite book, and the cover was kind of a clickbait with the cheese font. But with the remake, I focused on Greg and Rowley's horror movie they try making. When making the cover, I wanted to make it super clear that the blood is definitely just ketchup. I think I did a good job with that. What do you think of the cover? Diary of a Wimpy Kid. The Getaway was a cover that was a bit hard to figure out, but I got it eventually. The beach towel texture definitely helped once I figured that part out. The tiki spine was something I was really excited about as it was definitely different. With the drawing I wanted to change it a bit to have the plane look way bigger because it looked too small in the original. But that's only because having a whole plane in that tiny paper for the cover was definitely a tough job if Greg had to remain the same size he usually is on all the covers. But they managed to pull it off, and I think I did too with my little changes. What do you think of the cover? Diary of a Wimpy Kid. The Meltdown was one of my favorite covers to make. The drawing as well as the texture was both equally satisfying because it was so easy to figure out what I was going to do. The cover texture is the street with the wacky weather going on. It's snowing, there's leaves on the ground, some old and some new. It's hard to notice, but there's also sunshine. With the drawing, I wanted all the elements of weather basically causing Greg grief. I can't believe I managed to pull off a flipped umbrella. What do you think of the cover? This cover is similar to the original except for the spine and the picture. I've mentioned this before, but I hate covers that have a drawing of Greg being stuck in something, like stuck in a cake, or stuck in a snowman, or stuck in a pile or rubbish. It's just lazy, and I'd rather more unique drawings. That's why I had this drawing be Manny riding the wrecking ball while Greg is hanging from it. What do you think of the cover? Here is the Deep End remake cover. I really like the original cover, and I wanted to do something similar. So, instead of the pool in the book, I instead chose the creek that Greg struggles in during the book. I really like this cover, and the drawing was really fun to do. What do you think of this cover? This cover I had struggled with. I was going to do a cover texture with a basketball, but felt it was too obvious and I should try being more creative. So instead I did something no overcover had done before. I combined the texture and the drawing together. Greg is trying to throw the ball into the texture hoop but he's very awkward with it as he's not an athletic person. I really liked how this cover turned out and how I've combined the texture and the drawing together to create a whole scene. With the spine, I did a bunch of sports equipment, so you definitely know this book is all about sports. What do you think of the cover? Diaper Overload. I just realized Overload is also spelled wrong for the title. Is my least favorite cover. It's nice, but definitely could be better, but I just couldn't do anything that would improve the epic cover the original cover is. I'm sorry for that. What I did, however, was the texture of a brick wall with Roderick's band poster on it, sticky taped to the wall. Maybe in the future I'll try again to really improve this cover. But for now, this is what I made. To be fair though, this book is terrible, so it deserves a terrible cover. What do you think? With No Brainer's remake cover, I kept it pretty much like the original except for a few small changes. The brain spine, obviously, that was going to be the texture of the cover, but I felt it was too gross for a cover. With the drawing of Greg, I added a few extra details to his dead. I made it so it looks like his brain has fallen apart, with all the screws and springs falling out. What do you think of the cover? This is the first remake cover I made. Hot mess. I really enjoy it because I kept the same design as the original but with my own spin on it. The original design, I didn't like the mat as there was too many squares in the pattern, making it look messy. That was my main problem, which I fixed with the remake. I also added ants because I think the original is too bright. There's no contrast with a dark color on the cover. The drawing was also fun to make too. Greg running from a gigantic meatball. Here is the cover. What do you think? Party Pooper is a remake cover I really like as it just works so well. The original cover was already so amazing, but I'm glad I was able to come up with a different idea that also works super well. Well, that's technically not true. A fan on Discord helped me with this idea. The texture is Greg's diary being wrapped up in a birthday wrapping. It was such a fun idea, I had to make it right away after hearing it. Here is the cover. What do you think? The final cover remake is Fight or Flight, a book that isn't even out yet. Most people hate the original cover, so I had to make this one really good, and I think I did. The texture is a boxing ring with lights lighting up the stage. The drawing is Greg with Rowley after a round of boxing. He's all torn up, but he's preparing to go again. What do you think of this remake cover? Thank you all for watching. What is your favorite Wimpy Kid remake cover? This project was super fun to do, and I think the covers all came out pretty damn good for the most part. I have even seen that others on Discord are remaking the covers too, which is nice to see. I'm curious about what you rank the covers from best to worst. It would be fun to read. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all very soon for more Wimpy Kid videos.